"Don't come for Christmas," my mom said quietly. "We'll act like we don't know you," my brother added. I didn't fight back. I stayed calm and got a little revenge instead. When his girlfriend saw my photo at the party, she broke up with him right there. 5 days later, my mom was begging me. "My name is Dr. Lauren Ellis, and I was told not to come home for Christmas." The call came just 3 days before the holiday. I had just returned from a long shift at the hospital, exhausted but still managing a smile as I glanced at the packed bag by my door. I had bought gifts for everyone, even the rosemary stuffing ingredients they always requested, but never remembered that I was the one who made it. I'd even picked out a new forest green sweater. Soft, simple, festive, but not overdone. Just enough. When my phone buzzed, I saw my younger brother Blake's name. I assumed he was calling to ask if I could bring extra napkins or help with carpooling, like every year. Instead, he said, "Hey, so Savannah's coming to Christmas, right? She's really into energy, like how a room feels. And with your work sometimes, it can feel kind of heavy. I think it might be better for her if you sit this one out. It's nothing personal." I didn't argue. I didn't ask what he meant by heavy. He didn't say, "You're a dedicated geriatric doctor who helps people die with dignity." No, just heavy. Like a wet towel ruining his Instagram vibe. An hour later, my mom called. Her voice was soft, almost like a lullaby hiding a ticking grenade. "Honey, we're just trying to make this easy for everyone. You know how sensitive she is. If you come, it could cause confusion. Honestly, we might not even answer the door." That was when I realized it wasn't just that I wasn't invited. I was unwanted. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I simply said, "Okay." Hung up, opened my banking app, and started canceling mortgage payments, freezing car loan top-ups, locking emergency funds. I stopped being their silent backbone. No social media posts, no messages, just silence. And for the first time, that silence was mine. I used to think the way my family treated me was normal. That maybe I was just too serious, too focused, too much. I was the oldest, the trial run, as my dad once joked at a barbecue, just before handing Blake the bigger slice of cake. Blake, the golden boy, creative, charming, the miracle baby born after years of trying. I was just first. When Blake was 6, he drew all over the living room wall with permanent marker. My parents called it expressive. When I accidentally broke a bowl helping set the table, I was careless and told to pay more attention. Blake came home with a participation ribbon once. It stayed on the fridge for a week. I brought home straight A's, and they said, "That's nice," before sliding my report card into a drawer. Once, I even left my perfect GPA letter on the kitchen counter, hoping someone would ask. No one did. When I got accepted to medical school on the first try, no gap year, no second chance, I showed my mom the acceptance letter. She said, "Wow, that's intense. You'll have to be careful not to burn out." When Blake dropped out of college for the 3rd time to pursue creative direction, they threw him a re-entry party. Balloons, cake, and a framed photo of him holding a paintbrush that now hangs in the hallway like he cured cancer. They always said Blake was artsy, that he felt things deeply. I once found my sketchbook in the recycling bin under grocery flyers. When I asked, they said they thought it was scrap paper. But I kept going. I worked hard. I graduated early, got licensed, and started treating elderly patients. People dismissed, forgotten, left to decline alone. I gave them my time, my energy, my whole heart. At home, I gave quietly too. Fixing plumbing, paying off lingering bills without being asked, lending Blake money when his freelance gigs fell through, never asking for it back, never mentioning it. None of that mattered. In their eyes, Blake was the star. And I, despite everything, was just the one who always showed up on time and didn't complain. Until I didn't. There's a strange kind of pain in being the person everyone relies on but no one really sees. That was me, the fixer, the helper, quietly covering the cost of a new water heater in February, spotting overdrafts on my parents' account and transferring money before they noticed, booking Blake's flight home for Thanksgiving when he was short after buying new camera gear. I never said no. Not once. Not when my mom needed co-pays for physical therapy. Not when Blake called from the side of the road because his car battery died again. I bought him a new one that week. I was useful, and I thought that meant I was valued. But I began to notice a pattern. My contributions invisible until they stopped. They forgot who helped, but remembered who made things uncomfortable. When I was there, I was too quiet, too serious, too intense. When I wasn't, things were lighter, easier, more fun. Still, I kept helping, out of love, obligation, maybe just habit. But that night, when they told me not to come to Christmas, something inside shifted. It wasn't anger, it was realization. I opened my banking app and paused every recurring transfer. The $800 monthly mortgage top-up? Gone. The rainy day fund I kept for family emergencies? Locked. The $1,200 Blake owed me? I knew it would never return, but I refused to let another cent go his way. They wouldn't notice right away. That's the thing about being silently useful. It's only when the support disappears that people realize it was there at all. I didn't announce my withdrawal. No posts. No passive-aggressive quotes. I didn't even tell my friends. I just let the silence settle, and for the first time, it felt like peace. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my apartment with a mug of hot tea and a blanket that still smelled faintly of rosemary and fabric softener. I didn't open the gifts I'd wrapped. I didn't light the tree. I didn't cry. I just sat still. There was a strange power in not showing up where you aren't wanted. The day after Christmas, my phone buzzed. Not once, 3 times. My mother ignored the calls, then sent a text. "Can you answer? You've done enough damage already." My stomach dropped. Then a new call. This time from my Aunt Claire, the only one in the family who still sent birthday cards with handwritten notes. I answered. "What happened yesterday?" she asked softly. "They're saying you ruined Christmas, but you weren't even there." I blinked. "I ruined it." She hesitated. "Something happened with Blake's girlfriend, Savannah. She left early. There was yelling. Then your name came up. That's all I know." Later that evening, Aunt Claire called again. She'd pieced together more. Apparently, Savannah had seen a photo of me in their living room. Just an old snapshot, probably from a birthday years ago. And recognized me. "You saved my grandmother," she said. "You're Dr. Lauren Ellis." The room, Claire said, went completely silent. What happened next wasn't clear. Only that Savannah asked if I was the sister they'd talked about, and whatever she heard after made her quietly gather her things and leave. I didn't need the details. I could imagine it all too well. They probably joked about me, as they always did. That I lived in hospitals, took things too seriously, was hard to love. Maybe they repeated that awful line Blake once said, "Lauren is basically death in a pantsuit." It wasn't new. But this time, someone else was listening. Someone who didn't grow up thinking cruelty was just family talk. Someone who remembered the doctor who stayed by her grandmother's side when everyone else gave up. Someone who saw me for who I really am. That's how I ruined Christmas. By not being there to keep the illusion alive, by not showing up to smile politely while they carved me into a cautionary tale, by being remembered unexpectedly for the good I'd done for someone who wasn't even them. 2 days passed before I got another call. This time from my mother. She didn't say hello. She just launched in, her voice tense. "I don't know what you said to her, but your brother is a mess. Savannah blocked his number. She won't speak to him. She posted something online about being treated like garbage by the family of a woman she admires." There was the sound of glass clinking in the background. Maybe pacing in the kitchen, maybe pouring a crisis glass of wine. Probably both. "She tagged your photo," she said sharply, as if I'd committed a crime. I said nothing. I let her talk. Eventually, she reached the point. "We need you to speak to her. Just clarify there was no bad intention, that she misunderstood." Because now I was the family's PR department. Damage control for the same people who had uninvited me from the dinner table. "She's ruining your brother's future," my mom said. "Quieter now. His name's being dragged through those art circles she's part of in New York. He's being blacklisted." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. They spent decades trying to make me invisible. Now the fallout of that invisibility landed somewhere they cared about. Their image. I didn't respond. I just said, I'll think about it. I didn't think about it. Instead, I opened Savannah's post. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. She wrote about the doctor who saved her grandmother, about walking into a family celebration hoping for warmth but instead hearing people joke about that same woman. She wrote about her shock that someone so kind and impactful could be so ridiculed by their own family. She didn't use names. She didn't have to. One line stood out: "Some people hide cruelty behind polite smiles and holiday lights." But the moment I saw that photo, I remembered what real kindness looks like. And it wasn't anyone sitting at that table. Her post went viral in her circles. People shared it, commented, tagged others. For the first time, none of those voices called me difficult or heavy. They said I mattered. That same night, just before bed, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail. Not from my mother, not from Blake, not even from my father, who only calls when he needs help resetting his email password. The message was from Savannah. Her voice was softer than I remembered from the video Blake had shared weeks ago. Less rehearsed, more genuine. "Hi, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out like this. I got your number from your aunt. I just needed to say something." There was a pause, a long one. "I didn't really know who you were, but I recognized your photo. You treated my grandmother years ago. She still talks about you. She says, you changed everything. You didn't give up on her when others did. You were kind, present, and you made her feel like she mattered." Her voice faltered slightly on the next pause. "I'm sorry for what happened and what was said about you. I had no idea. I just couldn't stay silent, so I left. That was all." I listened to the message twice, then again, and I cried. Not from sadness, but because for the first time in years, someone truly saw me. Not through the lens of family expectations or years of being overlooked. Not as too serious or intense, or as a shadow behind the golden child. Just as me. Savannah didn't ask for anything in return. She didn't suggest we reconnect or meet. She didn't try to fix what wasn't broken. She simply acknowledged the truth. And somehow, that acknowledgement healed me more than 1,000 empty apologies from my own family ever could. 3 days later, a small package arrived in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick paper, the ink slightly smudged at the edges. Savannah wrote about her grandmother, how she still practiced yoga twice a week, still walked to the farmer's market, and still told the story of the young doctor who looked her in the eye and said, "You're not done yet." She thanked me, not just for saving a life, but for showing her what real strength looked like. I framed that letter and hung it by my desk, where I finish patient notes every evening. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to them or anyone. Just when I thought the dust had settled, my inbox lit up. The subject line read, "Let's reset things." It was an email from all three of them, my mother, my father, and Blake, acting as a united front, like a group project submission. Their tone was exactly what I expected from people who see apologies as a form of negotiation. They didn't say sorry directly. Instead, they acknowledged that emotions ran high and expressed regret over how things might have been perceived. In other words, we still think we're right, but we don't want the consequences. They proposed a family brunch, a neutral place for an open-hearted discussion. Then, buried in the fourth paragraph, was their real request. They wanted me to ask Savannah to take down her post. There it was, the true reason behind their sudden olive branch. It wasn't a gesture of healing, it was a bargaining chip, an attempt to restore Blake's reputation in the art circles where Savannah moved to clean up the mess they'd made, using me as the mop. I didn't respond. The next morning, the escalation began. My father called one of my hospital administrators, someone he'd met once at a charity event, and expressed concern about my emotional stability, implying I was unwell. He tried to gaslight my workplace to discredit me. Thankfully, the administrator called me immediately, apologized, and reassured me that I had nothing to worry about. That bridge was burned. Then came a group text to extended family, full of carefully crafted half-truths. No mention of my exclusion or the hurtful comments behind my back. Just claims that she's tearing the family apart and concerns about my mental health. 2 cousins I hadn't heard from in years reached out. One even offered me a voucher for a yoga retreat, just in case. Finally, the most desperate move, a visit. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I heard a knock. I looked through the peephole. There they were, my parents and Blake. I opened the door and leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "We just want to talk," my mom said softly. I didn't move. By then, I understood something clearly. They weren't here for me. They wanted the version of me who had always cleaned up their messes. But that version no longer lived here. They waited silently, hoping I would fold like before, invite them in, make things easy again. But I didn't. After a moment, I said no. No explanations. No anger. No performance. I closed the door behind me and felt no guilt. Instead, I made myself a cup of tea, settled at my desk, and gazed at the letter from Savannah, framed in a gentle wooden frame. It reminded me that the most genuine recognition often comes from those who have nothing to gain. People who simply see you because they've been paying attention. I reflected on all the years I had spent trying to earn the love of a family that only ever measured me against a version of themselves they wanted to believe in. The golden child, the artist, the one who made them look good. But I wasn't made to fit their expectations. I was born to heal, to stand beside those on the brink of goodbye, to listen when others turn away. And in doing that, I had made a real difference. I didn't save lives for praise, nor did I cancel debts out of spite. I didn't walk away to prove a point. I walked away because I finally saw the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's power in silence, in choosing not to justify yourself to people determined to misunderstand. There's strength in setting boundaries and holding them firm. And there's peace in knowing your worth doesn't require validation from your family. As I finished filing my patient notes for the night, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. So, to anyone out there who's ever been made to feel like they're too much, too serious, or too inconvenient, know this: you are not too much. You are not the problem. You were never meant to shrink to fit into someone else's story. Write your own. And if this story speaks to you, if you've ever felt invisible to those who should have seen you most clearly, take a moment to like, share, or comment. Sometimes the quietest stories carry the loudest truths. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply not show up.